there. Let's move on to some March Madness talk here. We're just going to do some rapid fire March Madness questions. First, let's just start off. You sort of alluded to it earlier, but favorite first round matchup?
Yeah, that's going to be UConn versus Oklahoma. That's probably the most exciting prospect matchup in the first round this year. I'm really interested to see how Jeremiah Fears will tackle that UConn defense. Obviously, UConn is not at the same height as it's been the past 2 years where they have won the championship. But they still have Dan Hurley. They still have Alex Caravan. They have Liam McNeely. We'll see how Fierce will sort of solve that UConn puzzle. On the other hand, how will UConn sort of pick on Jeremiah defensively? Because we know that teams have been doing that. We saw that in the Kentucky game. So we'll see how well Fears will match up defensively. But yeah, that's sort of my pick, must watch television.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great one. Those 8-9 games are always just super competitive and hard to pick a winner of. So yeah, that's a great one. And then obviously, from a prospect standpoint, really, really intriguing there. Yeah, super interesting to think about this Oklahoma team in general. I believe they went undefeated in non-conference play. If not, maybe they lost one or two games, something like that. And then obviously, we're super challenged by this incredible SEC this year. So I think they're a team that might have a little bit more upside than people are giving them credit for. But then at the same time, you're going against Dan Hurley and that UConn team, even though it's not the same team as the last 2 years, they have that experience, they have that pedigree. So obviously, super tough matchup there. Who are you ultimately rocking with as your pick?
Oh, that's. I think ultimately UConn pulls it through because I will give the edge to that sort of you know Dan Hurley led team. As I said before, even though they're not the same UConn team as the past couple years, they still have some of that infrastructure still in place. Like Alex Caravan is still on the team, so I think they will ultimately pull it through. Versus Oklahoma.
Yeah, for sure. I have to agree with you there. Just that experience, even though it's not the same team, is just always a massive advantage in the tournament. My favorite matchup, it's not necessarily for prospects as much as it is just as a pure basketball matchup. Got New Mexico Marquette, 7-10 matchup, Marquette being the 7th seed. I think that's a super interesting one. Uh, from the standpoint that Marquette, they really take care of the ball well and they're very efficient offensively, whereas New Mexico, they really like to force turnovers and they really thrive off defense. So I think just basketball wise, that's going to be super interesting to watch that play out. And then at the same time, Cam Jones, he's probably just outside of that top 20 range for you. I'd
Yeah.
have to assume. Just an elite scorer, experienced college player. I always tend to gravitate towards those 3 or 4 year guys that are able to have a high impact. So yeah, he's one of my favorite college players. So I'm interested to watch him. And then you have him matching up against Donovan Dent from New Mexico, who's another prolific guard scorer. So watching that matchup will be super interesting to me. I think just watching two of the best scorers in college basketball go at it. And then, as I mentioned, sort of with the New Mexico's ability to force turnovers versus how efficient Marquette is and how they really take care of the ball well. That will be super interesting to watch play out. I'm gonna probably lean Marquette, although this is definitely the matchup I'm having the toughest time picking. New Mexico could definitely pull that one off, and then it's also interesting just to know Richard Pitino, Rick Pitino's son, is the coach for New Mexico. He's sort of a hot coaching candidate in terms of these open jobs. So I think he could really rise his stock further in the tournament. So that's another thing I'm interested to watch for in this matchup. All right, so obviously upsets are probably the biggest part of March Madness, why everyone loves it so much. So what's your favorite upset pick in the first round?
I think my favorite upset pick is going to be Colorado State over Memphis. I think it's mainly due to Nick Clifford and just the absolute heater he's been on these past few weeks or so. Let me go over to his numbers. Like the past 5 games or so, he scored in the double digits. The past 4 games, he scored more than 20 points. I feel like given his level of excellence that he has shown the past 2 weeks or so, is going to carry over into this matchup versus Memphis, and Colorado State is going to pull out the win.
Yeah, I agree with you there. This Colorado State team has also just been super hot headed into the tournament. They've won a bunch of games in a row, so I think that's another massive advantage there. We always see these upsets with the 5-12 team. So I think that's huge. And then, like you said, Nick Clifford is really just an exceptional player. I'm sure he's also just outside of that top 20 for you on
Yep.
the big board. All around skill set, really good shot creator as well. So yeah, that's another one on my radar. I'm gonna go a little bit with a crazy one here. I got Akron upset in Arizona. Akron, I can't say I've watched them a ton this season. Not
Yeah,
gonna
me
lie,
neither.
but from what I've read and what I've heard about this team, super deep team. They push the pace really, and they shoot the three ball really well. So I think that could sort of expose Arizona a little bit. And these sort of prolific offenses from sort of conferences that we're not super familiar with typically pull off those kind of upsets. And at the same time, I do not trust this Arizona team at all. It's never a team I'm going to be trusting in the tournament. They always seem to fall short and disappoint. Obviously, 2 years ago, they lost as a two seed to Princeton. So that's always a team I'm looking at as a potential top seed to get upset. So that's why I'm rocking with Akron. I think they're sort of going to shock the world and be one of the big stories in the first round, pulling off that 13-4 upset. Another reason why is Caleb Love. I'm a UNC fan, so I do enjoy Caleb Love, and I like watching him play. But at the same time, he's very streaky and inconsistent, and he's really that main source of offense on that Arizona team. So he could end up having an amazing game and making me look like a complete idiot and scoring 30 points, or he could end up shooting sort of like two for 15 from the field and sort of tilting the
Yeah.
game in favor of Akron. That's why I'm rocking with Akron. I think they're gonna shock the world with a crazy upset there. All right, sort of on a similar note. I don't think Akron, at least for me, maybe Colorado State for you. I do think they're a little bit more well suited to make a deep run. But is there any Cinderella team you like to make a run to the Sweet 16 or maybe even beyond?
Um, I will say that while I haven't watched like a whole bunch of this team, I will say that it's uh the 11 seeded Drake in the West bracket. Uh, Ben Ben Sturts, excuse me, Bennett Sturts. He has been a like a prolific offensive engine for his team. I believe they're 30 and 3, excuse me. Um, I feel like yeah, like that offense could really, could really help them propel them deep into the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there. I didn't have them as my Cinderella team, but I could definitely foresee it, and I'm picking them over Missouri for sure. I think one thing that I've heard about this team a lot is how they really like to slow the game down. And I think a lot of times, sort of making teams play at that slow pace can really throw them off, especially first round. They're going up against a Missouri team that likes to do the opposite. They like to push the pace a lot. So I think that's really interesting. And Drake, obviously, a new coach this year. They brought in a bunch of guys from D2, and including Bennett, like you discussed. So I think that's something interesting to note. The continuity. This is a team I've
Yeah.
just heard a ton about. How they force turnovers, I think that's really dangerous in the tournament, especially going up against a Michigan team that doesn't have strong guard play and their weakness is sort of turnovers. I think that bodes well for them as a potential first round upset. And Texas A&M Yale. A lot of people are picking Yale. I'm probably gonna still pick Texas A&M to win, but at the same time, from everything I've heard about this Texas A&M team, they don't shoot the ball very well. Offense is sort of their weak point. So in turn, if they could, San Diego could force a lot of turnovers there, and then also force them into a lot of bad shots and expose their weaknesses as well. So I foresee this UC San Diego team going on a Sweet 16 type of run.
Yeah, that's a great pick.
Yeah, I just see that as a classic sort of Cinderella teams. I think they could be a lot of fun in the tournament. Definitely a team to look out for. Sort of on a similar note to a way higher degree. Do you have a potential dark horse champion team? Maybe a team you're gonna pick to go to the Final Four, but not necessarily win it all, or maybe a team you could just nobody's thinking about them, but they really have all the characteristics of a potential championship team.
Yeah, that sort of team I would say uh is the two seeded Alabama in the East bracket. I think that comes with the caveat. of like if Cooper like really, his ankle injury really affects him and he just isn't playing this at the same level that he has been playing. I think there's a possibility where Alabama could swoop in and knock them out of the tournament and head to the Final Four, or to the Final Four. Obviously, one of their better players, Grant Nelson, suffered an injury in one of their last games. So we'll see about his status. But I feel like they have enough talent, enough depth to really take them deep into the tournament and potentially beat Duke if Cooper is lacking.
Definitely, yeah. We'll get into our Final Four predictions later, but I'm going to spoil it a little bit. I have Alabama in the Final Four. This team's so versatile, and they have that experience with making the Final Four last year, so I think that bodes well for them. Nate Oates is a terrific coach. He really runs sort of an NBA style of offense, so a lot of fun to watch there. Elite guard play, and then Grant Nelson's health will be crucial for them, but having that front court size as well just really opens up the game for them. And yeah, one of the best offenses in the country, so you really can't count out Alabama. They have a ton of impressive wins. I know they didn't close the season on a super high note, but at the same time, I agree. This is a team that has all the ingredients of a championship level team. So I like the Alabama pick. I'm gonna go with Maryland. The Crab Five, just so much fun, so much scoring in that starting five, and I'm a little bit. Everyone's in on Florida. I'm going to be honest, I'm a little dubious of Florida. Maybe they'll make me look like a complete idiot and win it all. But at the same time, when you have a coach, Todd Golden, he's never won a tournament game. I think that's a big concern for me. Basketball wise, I definitely like this team. They're very well positioned in terms of their elite guard play, and then they do have that front court size, versatility, elite offense, elite defense. But at the same time, just that lack of experience from a coaching perspective concerns me in the tournament a little bit. So I do think Maryland could potentially pull off an upset there and just sort of go on a crazy run. I see them as a potential Final Four team. The offense with the Crab Five there has been super elite. Obviously, Derek Queen, we talked about him earlier, but I mean, you go down the line, the highest score in starting five in the country is really nothing to scoff at, and I think they're a little bit underseeded as a 4 seed. And then yeah, at the same time, they are really good on both ends of the floor. I'm pretty high on them. They do have the sixth ranked defense to go along with that sort of elite offense. I know their bench is a little bit of a concern, but I do think this Maryland team is pretty well positioned to make a deep run in March.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet against them either. Like their defense has been very impressive despite Derek Queen's sort of deficiencies on that end. And obviously Derek Queen will be a major factor, especially if he has like a really great performance throughout the tournament. I would not be surprised, or I shouldn't say that. It would not be so surprising if Maryland makes a deep run.
Yes, sir. So let's move on to before we wrap up with our national championship and Final Four pick. What are just in general some characteristics you look at when trying to pick a national champion?
So let me preface by saying that I am an NBA first guy. When I'm evaluating these prospects, I'm more thinking about like, oh, how can they translate their skill set into the NBA or in NBA settings? So maybe I'm a little bit more deficient on the college end. But from how I see it, I think they need to have some sort of combination of these sort of factors. I think they need depth. The ability to sort of like have guys in the reserves who could take on big roles, especially if like their starters or star players, get hurt. These guys could step up into bigger roles and sort of be a star in their role. Second, I would say sort of like toughness and experience. Obviously, it will be more the college game is more favored towards those upperclassmen who has that experience, know what they're doing, just help sort of lead their younger teammates to greater heights. That sort of aspect is, I would say, is important to a championship team. Especially we've seen it the last 2 years with those UConn teams. Obviously, Tristan Newton was on both of those championship teams. This the third sort of factor. It's not ubiquitous with every team, but I do think that they like a lot of great teams have that like the guy to help lead them into a deep run. Obviously, this year we got like Auburn with Janai Broom, Duke with Cooper, especially if he is healthy. Florida has Walter Clayton Jr. Houston, that this it's it's less that they have that guy, but they have like Jojo Tugler on defense. But I do think that it's important to have someone like that guy or those guys. And I would say sort of like the last sort of factor would be having like a strong team identity. For Houston, they have a very strong defensive identity that they build their team around and they hold on to. Is similar in that sense, where they obviously they have Cooper Flag and Colin Malawak and Malik Brown sort of anchoring the center, and they sort of try to force turnovers and to get out in transition. Florida is centered around Clayton Jr. and his ability to be a primary initiator. Same thing with Auburn with Janai Broom. I feel like having that sort of strong identity around someone or something is important to those to being a championship team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really great criteria. And then, sort of on a similar note, definitely experience is something I value, and continuity with a similar core. I think when you look at teams that win the tournament, that's usually a common factor. Guard play, I'm always going to gravitate to teams that have just strong guard play. When you look at NCAA champions, a lot of times they're led by guards. So that's something I'm definitely going to prioritize when looking at a team that has the ability to win it all, is having elite guard play. Especially, I think forward play and big man play is definitely important. But when you look at the teams that win it all, more often than not, they're led by guards. Another thing I look at is versatility and balance. You have to win playing multiple styles of play in this tournament, just based off matching up with a variety of different teams. That's something you're always going to have, is that versatility and then balance. You just have to play both ends of the floor. There's obviously that famous Ken Palm stat where team has to be top 20 in offense and top 40 in defense to win it all. That's something I look at, and then in turn, if they don't have that balance, that's a team that I look at as potentially vulnerable to an upset early on. If they either have a really poor offense or a really poor defense, that's something I'm looking at as a potential upset there. But yeah, overall, I think those are just the most important factors. And yeah, I think more often than not, those are, if you have those three or four things, you're going to ultimately have a good chance at winning it all. So yeah, let's get to our final predictions. Who do you have in your final four, and then ultimately, who do you have winning it all?
So I think I'm gonna give a cop out answer, and I think all four of the first seeds are gonna go to the final four. I'm just really I'm sort of really high on all of those teams. Auburn, I love Janai Broom. They have been sort of like slipping a little bit, but I wonder like once they actually get into the tournament setting that maybe they'll lock back in and sort of make their way through to the Final Four. Though I will say that they probably have the hardest path to getting to the Four out of the first seeds. Obviously, with Duke, I love Cooper. We'll see how his injury will affect him. But if he's good, like if he's healthy and his ankle injury has no effect on his play like at all or very little, I could really see him leading that Duke team to the Final Four. As I said before, Cooper is a relentless competitor. He wants to win every single time he's out on the court. I'm a really big believer like in his ability to help lead that Duke team to the Final Four, and also their depth. They're like you know they're sort of the guys around Cooper, like Malawak, Knipple, Proctor, Sion James, Isaiah Evans, like that. Those players. That's a really good team around Cooper. For Florida, I know you said you're not as high on Florida, but I think that they have like amazing depth around Walter Clayton Jr. Obviously, we'll see how he will do as sort of like that primary initiator, like in the tournament. And obviously, you have concerns about the coach, but I feel like that team itself is good enough to make a deep run. There's another prospect on Florida that I really like, Alex Condon. I feel like he's also shaping up to have a very impressive performance in the tournament that will help lead Florida to the Final Four. As for Houston, I'm a big believer that defense win championship. Nico Harrison is also the same in that respect. But I feel like that it's just very important that you could get stops, and Houston could really do that. And I feel like they could really put a shutter on any team that's trying to get their offense going. So I feel like they could really make their way into the Final Four.
Yeah, for sure. I can't blame you at all for having four number one seeds. I mean, if there was ever a year, I feel like it would be this year. If you look at Ken Palm, all number one seeds have a net rating above 30, which is pretty rare if you look back in years past. Maybe it's one team, maybe two. We've never seen four teams with this high of a net rating. So I think that's something worth noting for sure. And I could sort of see it playing a little bit chalky in that area. So I definitely agree with you there. And yeah, I do think all those teams are really well positioned to make a deep run. Even though, as I said, I was a little dubious of Florida, when you look at this team, they're totally a complete team. And I have them going to the Elite Eight. I don't know if I could totally go with that Maryland upset, but I wouldn't be shocked at the same time. I'm a little skeptical of Florida, but I still think they're well positioned to make a deep run. And then all the other teams just, yeah, incredibly balanced and incredibly deep. I'm gonna go with my final four. I have Houston. I have Alabama, as I mentioned earlier, and then I have Auburn and St. John's. St. John's, a little bit of a biased pick. I just love the way they play. Gritty defensive team. They don't have that elite offense, which does concern me a little bit, but at the same time, their versatility, their size, their defense, and Patino's experience in this tournament really makes me confident in them. And I think they can pull off sort of a crazy run. And I feel like the NCAA kind of, I obviously don't think it's rigged or anything, but I think the NCAA would be very happy with a deep Patino run. And seeing St. John's have this magical season has been really awesome because they haven't been good in a while, and it's just such a historic program. So I'm feeling a deep St. John's run. Auburn, a little bit concerned in how they ended the season, but at the same time, I'm very confident in this team. Janai Brum, and then just surrounded by really, really high quality guards, whether it's Pettiford or Denver Jones. Like they're really solid all around. And Bruce Pearl has coached a team that's made the Final Four before. They've really built up an excellent program. So I see them going to the Final Four. And Alabama, we talked about them earlier, but I think just with their elite guard play, their experience, huge fan of Nate Oates, and then versatility in the front court as well. I think they're well positioned to make a deep run, and I could definitely foresee them upsetting Duke, especially Cooper Flag's ankle injury. Not totally sure how that's going to play out. Also, again, a little biased there because I am a UNC fan, so I'm just never going to pick Duke to make a deep run. So I'll fully admit that there is a little bias there. But I do see Alabama making a deep run. And then I really love this Houston team. That's going to be my national champion. As you mentioned, just such an elite defense. I think they have the second best defense behind St. John's. And like you said, defense a lot of times does win championships. When you look at this team, they've really been surging over the last few years, especially once they entered the Big 12, and it feels like they're really destined for a deep run in the tournament. Kelvin Sampson's done a terrific job. That culture is just truly incredible. A really elite guard play, and then that front court size, that physicality there, it's truly incredible. LJ Cryer's one of the better guards in college basketball, so they do have that sort of star potential, and they have a ton of experience as well. So I think this is finally the year for Houston. I feel like they've been so close for so long, and I feel like it's just really time for them to win it. I'm going to pick them over St. John's in the finals. Again, I kind of just want to see that St. John's team make a deep run, so maybe a little bit biased there, but I'm still a big believer in them based off their defense. So that's what I'm feeling for my Final Four and my national champion. I'm going Houston. I think they really do have it all in terms of defense, and they're shooting the ball a lot better than years past. Their offense has really been at an elite level. So that two-way balance, that physicality, that toughness, I think they really have it all. I will say I'm a little terrified of the Gonzaga matchup in the second round, assuming that Gonzaga gets past Georgia just based off Mark Few and his experience there. But at the same time, this Houston team, they haven't lost a game since November. And the game they did end up losing, it was only by 1 point, I believe. So this team's been so dominant all year. I really see no reason they can't make a deep run, and I'm picking them to win it all. I don't think you mentioned you did go over your Final Four, but who are you picking in the championship game and to win it all?
Uh, yeah, this is probably the toughest question for me. I would say, like, as I said before, I'm an NBA guy first, so like the college stuff I'm maybe not as quite versed in. So I believe more in more like prospects than and their sort of their ability to lead a team. I would say that if Cooper is completely healthy, like that ankle injury does not do anything to him at all, I feel like he has the potential to lead Duke to the championship. But I would say with the caveat that if it does, like, really, like it burdens him as the tournament goes on, I would not be surprised if Houston picks up the win here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, I did mention my bias as a UNC fan earlier, but I will say, based off all the metrics, based off what we've seen from this season, this Duke team, in my opinion, should be the favorites to win this tournament. I think they probably should have got the number one overall seed. And yeah, there's really no reason to pick against them. When you look at metrics, when you look at history, when you look at just how complete this roster is, they really check all the boxes. Even though they are a little bit inexperienced at the top, they have guys like Mason Gillis, Sion James, who are a little bit older and have that experience. So I think they're very well positioned to make a deep run, and I think that definitely makes sense that they can sort of win it all. Before we wrap up, just I want to get your take on prospect that you think will boost his draft stock the most during this tournament. Going back to our theme with prospects and sort of your specialty there.
So I feel like there's not like a single prospect that will boost their stock like the most in terms of March Madness. I feel like there's a whole bunch of different prospects that could really take a huge jump if they have a great performance during March Madness, like Kon Knipple, especially with Cooper's situation, Jace Richardson with Michigan State. Obviously, if Jeremiah Fears could beat UConn and like help lead Oklahoma down like a great run in the tournament that could really boost him up, maybe solidify him to be a top 10 talent. Nee Clifford for Colorado State, maybe this guy is on the sort of more forgotten side, but Igor Demon for BYU. If he could really show out and show that, hey, like I could score on these college guys, like maybe it will definitely help his draft stock. But there's so many more there's so many more players that we could talk about that who could really boost their draft stocks with great performances in the tournament. But like I would say the guys that I name could really boost their stocks like the most.
Yeah, I agree with all those names there. I think if there's one that stands out to me, especially as we discussed with that Colorado State upset potential there, I think Nick Clifford is the guy who could boost his stock the most. And then Derek Queen, a guy that I discussed earlier, I'm very high on that Maryland team. So he's another guy I'm going to monitor and think he could have a huge tournament and really sneak into that top 10, top 5 range. But yeah, going to be a lot of fun to watch this tournament. And yeah, super excited both from just a basketball standpoint and then obviously prospect standpoint. Just super excited overall. So yeah, I appreciate you coming on the show, Benjamin, just to break it all down. And yeah, appreciate it. Before you head out, anything you want to plug, articles, social media, anything you just want to let the viewers know where they can find you?
Well, first off, let me say thank you for having me on. I love talking draft. And this has been a very fun experience. Secondly, you can find my work at Last Word on Sports. I do draft stuff there. And if you're interested in the draft, check out my work.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure to check out Ben's work. He does a incredible job. He's very analytical. He does a great job breaking down all the prospects. So yeah, make sure to tune into his work, especially as this draft season approaches. Like I said, appreciate you coming on the show, Ben. It was a great episode.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Take care.